Yes.
I know you meditating for a long, long time. Then, like, people talk about we are living on third dimension, but more like, are you trying to reach for fifth, sixth, seven, 10 dimension or something, or you don't think about higher energies, not to, I don't know how to say, not dimension thing.
I try not to think about anything,
You don't think of anything. Hmm.
There are 7 cycles of energy
Hmm.
involved in a human being. The first one is the fundamental inner work to build all aspects of one humanity. You
Hmm.
understand? To get the heart open, to get the throat open, to quiet the mind, to get balance inside oneself by learning how to stay focused in the hara, by channeling sexual energy, which will activate Kundalini. I mean, all of these are very basic human things that we have to learn to cope with in our daily lives. And that's the first cycle of energy. And then once that cycle gets strong enough, the energy will, move to the crown chakra, and the Sahasrara, or the crown chakra, will open, and that energy will connect with the soul of the universe. That marriage will give birth to a flow of energy that returns. And it will bring knowledge, it will bring wisdom, it will bring ananda, love, it'll bring everything that really, enables a person to begin to have a spiritual life. So, our work really has to do with that. You got to build the primary cycle, the primary human level, because we're born here. We don't come to the earth for some ridiculous, we didn't make a left turn in the cosmos and wind up here. We come here to learn how to be human beings. Once we learn that, then the second, the third, the energy gets more and more refined inside a human being, and their connection with spirit, with higher energy in the universe gets more profound, and a spiritual life manifests inside a human being. But the first step is just simply learning how to be human, learning how to function on the earth with love, with joy, with compassion, with kindness, learning how to truly serve God while we live here, to serve a higher energy in the universe while we live here. That can only be done through love. It can only be done through compassion. All of these elements have to be developed inside a human being. And the work that Rudi taught develops these elements. So you don't start, from the third eye at the top of the pyramid and work down. You start at the base and you slowly build a system inside that ultimately becomes so refined, that the peak of that system touches, the cosmos. It connects with higher energy in the universe. But without building that kind of inner light, it's all ridiculous, It's kind of a sham. It doesn't work, because we got to work out our karma. As I always tell you, there are 3 elements in Rudi's work, right? The first one is being able to connect with spirit. Now, in order to connect with spirit and absorb that energy, you have to be very strong inside. You have to have an incredible capacity, because that energy is infinite in the universe. It's not some little drip that in a faucet's that leaking, It's like Niagara Falls coming into your system. You need the strength to be able to support that kind of experience. The second element in Rudi's work is working out your karma. We live on the earth, learning how to live here with, as I said before, with love, with compassion, with an open heart, and also you have to understand that the energy of the earth, the objective world, is an extremely powerful energy. Maya is an unbelievably powerful energy. and it sucks the life out of just about everybody. It's like a great vacuum cleaner that sucks the inner life out of everybody. You need to have incredible inner strength to deal with Maya, to transform Maya, illusion, into reality. And the third element is Kundalini. Kundalini is the pathway to enlightenment, but it's also a very powerful energy. And we need to be really grounded in order for Kundalini to work for us in an organic, healthy way. Once this kind of inner strength is developed in a human being, then these cycles of energy can take place. And as the energy recycles itself, the inner life of a human being gets more refined and more refined. And the ability to connect with higher energy gets more possible. We're not interfering with it. You understand? We have learned how to be human beings, and we're not interfering with the flow. We don't create an obstacle course through which that energy of a higher nature has to flow. So yes, there are many different cycles of energy, and all of them become possible if we develop the first one that I was talking about, which is truly the humanity, the strength in ourselves to be able to cope with life, to transform life from an enemy into a teacher, to be able to bow to life and let it teach us what we have to know about our inner work, to recognize that everybody's life, what you see outside yourself, is simply a reflection of your own inner self. You change inside, the world around you begins to change. All of this is essential. And yes, there are many cycles of energy, and the system of a human being gets more and more refined. And that in that refinement, we attain a state of spiritual enlightenment, which is the ultimate goal of all of this. But it's a step at a time.
So that means like a dimension, fifth, sixth, that's nonsense. Just one whole circle energy.
Yeah, it's all energy. Everything is energy, cosmic energy, earthly energy. It's all just energy. And different levels and layers of energy.
Mm-hmm. Like a parallel world is another, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. We belong to the same club, They don't know club is a good club. Then you're open to learn about everything. Does anyone else have a question they would like to
Thank
ask?
you.
I have a question, Stuart.
Yeah.
What's the best way to ground yourself after the class?
Wait, do you have to repeat the question?
Sorry, what is the best way to ground yourself?
After the class?
To stay grounded after the class, during the day?
Well, today I had a very, very, very powerful class when I was teaching the people in Europe and Israel, and it was unbelievable, after the class, people were like, they couldn't even move. And I just suggested to everybody, just go lie down for a half hour, absorb the energy. Don't have any pressing dates after class, lie down, relax, absorb the energy, let it find its home inside you, and maybe a half hour is more than sufficient to do this. And then during the day, you've got to constantly remind yourself, hey, I got to stay centered. I got to stay centered. So it's really good during the day to try to drop tension. You can let your arms drop at your side, and you can ask for help to drop all negative psychic tension, to get rid of that surface tension. And to remember that, you have to stay centered inside. And if you can't stay centered inside, when you come to the meditation class in the evening, you do the work to build the hara, to get your mind more and more focused in the hara.
Sorry, I have to ask again, just to make it clear. When you say stay centered during the day, can you just relax for a minute and focus on your hara?
Yes, yes, why not? Yes. Relax, and also accept the fact that you are learning how to do this. And you're not going to do this perfectly all the time. Nobody is. I can't do this perfectly. I have to remind myself during the day to stay focused in the chakra below the navel. You know, we're not perfect. And if you live with this idea that you have to be perfect all the time, you're just going to make yourself crazy. I mean that. Accept your limitations, accept your imperfections, use them as steps on a ladder, as a learning curve that you can develop in yourself the capacity to do the things that I'm talking about. But don't walk around thinking that you have to be perfect all the time, because you'll really make yourself crazy. God is perfect. The rest of us, you know, we stumble along on this path to the cosmos, you know, constantly learning from the mistakes we make. Does anyone else have a question?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stuart, originally at the beginning of the class, you said love is the answer. So I was just wanting to ask you to talk about giving and receiving unconditional love.
It's a very difficult thing to do, you know, unless you have a system inside that is developed to where you can do it. And people are just bouncing everywhere here. I don't, you know, part of this a big part, well, most of this meditation is about building a system inside that gives you the strength to be able to love unconditionally. You need to have that inner capacity to do that, because it's a very difficult thing, because mostly we love, well, I like it, it suits me, you know, it doesn't intimidate me, it doesn't threaten me, it doesn't, you know, and that's where we kind of focus what we call love, but it's not really love. You know, love is, you know, being able to love taking out the garbage, being able to, you know, it's like in the Bible, turn the other cheek. Who's going to throw the first stone? You know, I mean, these are very profound things that were said. And you need to have an inner life that is strong enough to do that. And without that kind of inner life, it's always, we love the things that we find in our mind that somehow we like, that are a little better for us, they're a little less intimidating, they're not threatening to us, you know, and that kind of love is not unconditional love. Unconditional love is, you know, they always say, love your enemy. Learn from the people that are difficult from you and approach them unconditionally and see what they have to teach you about you. Why are they difficult for you? And I can honestly tell you, in my life, I've never met an easy person, ever. And that really is true. And the difficulty I have with other people is such an incredible opportunity for me to learn to grow. I used to do this intentionally years ago. I would always have at least one or two people around me that were impossible for me. I mean it. And I would do it intentionally, because when I learned how to not feel queasy when they were around me, when I learned how to love them, when I learned how to open and learn from them, it meant that I was growing in a remarkable way inside myself. And I always used to have people like that around me. And then I discovered something even more important. No matter who's around you, there's always going to be something that's going to make you a little crazy, no matter who it is. So unconditional, please try and sit still. Hello? Try and sit up and do the meditation and sit still, because movement it really disrupts the class. So that is really an essential ingredient. I mean, I remember Rudi used to talk about this all the time, and I used to work in bars and restaurants, and there were a lot of strange people and crazy people that used to, and I had very difficult times with people while I worked there. And then I remember, something happened to me where I stopped judging them. I stopped looking at their faults. And I said, Stuart, learn from these people. What do they have to teach you? My whole relationship with these people changed. My whole relationship with life changed. I didn't have to live in a secluded world, that kind of suited only my sensibility, because life will never do that. Life will always present you with situations that are, that are impossible, people that are very difficult. And in many cases, your immediate family. You have people that are very difficult to deal with. And one has to learn how to unconditionally love them. And the only way I've learned how to do this is, honestly, it's through the meditation, building an inner life that enables me to be strong enough to be able to not sit in judgment of people, not to know better, but to allow whatever they are as human beings to teach me what I have to learn about myself to grow. And this is not an easy thing to do. It took me many years to learn how to do this. But I suggest that it's something to work on yourself, to learn, because in learning this, it, saves you a lot of aggravation. I mean, it's like I always tell Rudi said, you need to have an irritation in an oyster to get a pearl, Well, the people that provide that irritation, if we learn how to grow because of that irritation, I mean, it provides a spiritual life. We learn how to become more of a human being. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Otherwise, you live in an ivory tower, You insulate yourself against everything life has to teach. And I can't live that way. Every one of you is a different human being. Every one of you has something unique and different to teach me about myself. And I think that is a wonderful thing about this meditation. In order for me to grow, I have to learn how to deal with many aspects of humanity. Instead of living in a cocoon that we weave around ourselves,
Stuart, may I ask a question?
You sure can.
Hi, this is my first class with you. I just want to say thank you for sharing this beautiful energy with me, and with all of us. And
Is this Kevin?
yes, yeah.
Okay. You disappeared from the screen. You're on the other screen. Okay. No,
Was it working?
Yeah, it's working. Go ahead.
I was born 7 months after Rudi died. I never got, a chance to be on the same planet as him. And I really love Rudi. And I was wondering if maybe, you could share a story, maybe like a short story about him, something that, seems poignant. I just love to hear about anything about him that you would want to share?
Yeah, I can, I mean, I do it all the time. I've written a lot of books, Kevin, about, and Rudi is in, there's one called Rudi I wrote, and, and it's the story of the last half hour of Rudi's life. But it's not only the story of that, it's the story of my, what it means to have a spiritual teacher and how the teachings of Rudi evolved in my own life. I mean, look, when I was 25 years old, I was a very screwed up kid full of drugs and, a gypsy. I would travel all over the place, stick my thumb out. And in fact, the day before I met Rudi, to be honest with you, I had a friend of mine in San Francisco, an artist friend who told me, who really loved the poetry that I wrote. And he said, you come out to San Francisco, I will introduce you to all the major poets. I know them. And you're going to get a huge amount of success based on the poems that you've written. And I was ready to go. I said, what am I doing in New York? And, and anyway, I was living on the floor of a friend of mine's apartment in Chelsea. And, in Chelsea, which at that time was like a tenement slum, Today it's a higher, it's a very expensive neighborhood. And, paying $38 a month to live there and, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, this friend of mine said, why don't we go out and have some dinner? It was like 5 o'clock in the evening. So I said, all right. And there was a wonderful Mideastern restaurant we used to like to go to in Greenwich Village. So we walked on 8th Avenue. We walked, on Greenwich Street to 7th Avenue South. We made a right turn and we were walking and we came to this gallery that was full of Oriental art, a gallery I had honestly walked past 500 times and never went into. And we're looking in the window of the gallery. This friend of mine says, why don't we go in there? And I said to him, Charlie, I'm broke. I'm living on your floor. What am I going to do in there? This is museum stuff. It's very expensive. He said, come on, look, it doesn't cost to look. And I'll tell you, frankly, it was one of the most extraordinary things ever said to me. It doesn't cost to look. And I walked in the gallery and standing in the middle of the gallery was Rudi. And I was attracted to him like a magnet, literally a magnet. And it was like bing. And he started talking to me as if we'd known each other for at least a few thousand years. And we really did. And he said to me, he told me about his teacher in India. And then he showed me a photograph that I wish I had that photograph. It was an extraordinary photograph of him lying in some kind of position on the floor, at the foot of a spiritual teacher with a picture of Swami Nityananda coming out of his heart, superimposed. And he said to me, if you want to come study with me, come back here tomorrow night. And at 5 o'clock, and I will show you the meditation exercise and you can come to my meditation classes. So this friend of mine and I, we went out and had dinner. And I mean, this story is incredible. And we went back, when I sent out those essays, I talk about this, but I didn't finish the story. We went back to his apartment and he was living in a slum, bathtubs in the kitchen, toilets in the hall. It was a tenement building. And we're walking up the stairwell and a guy named Ed Borden, never forget this guy, stopped us on the stairwell, who I knew, because I had walked past, said hello to him, but I wasn't friends with him. He said, how'd you like to come have tea in my apartment? So we walk into his apartment. And as I live and breathe, the guy had a $500,000 Oriental art collection in his apartment. 10th century sculptures and, Tonkas and Buddhas. And I looked, I said, where the hell did you get all this stuff? He said, well, there's a guy in Greenwich Village named Rudi. I met an hour before. And I said, Stuart, the gods are talking to you. Once in your life, don't be a schmuck. Listen. And the next night I went back to him and I learned the exercise. And honestly, it was like this incredible father-son, profound relationship I had with him. And about a year later, you know, I asked him, I said, Rudi, what happened that day? He said, Stuart, I saw you looking in the window of my store, and I saw my son lost in the universe, and I pulled you into the door. I mean, it's an extraordinary story, you know, and something that I have infinite gratitude for. I never forget. And basically, it's why I do what I do today. No other reason. I'm not interested in being a guru. I'm not interested in being a swami. I'm not interested in any of that stuff, you know, that people go through, you know. I'm interested in serving with gratitude the teacher who gave me my life and saying thank you for what you have given to me, and doing it as clearly and as close to what I learned to him as it's possible to do it. It can't be exact, but certainly as close to what I learned from him. Because what I learned from him saved my life. And having saved my life, I don't want to add and subtract to it and make it my own. It's God's. It's not Stuart's. And it has to flow through me in the way it flowed through Rudi. You know, then I remember once, you know, he used to go to India, or he would travel, and I would go and sit with his mother in his gallery, you know, and you know, she was not an easy person, Ray. She really wasn't. But I loved her, and we had a very good friendship. We had a very good relationship. And I'll never forget, one day she was sitting there, we were sitting in the gallery, and she served me her famous noodles Alfredo, which I hate. She said to me, Stuart, I shouldn't tell you this. I shouldn't tell you this, but I'll tell it to you. When you met Rudi, the day you met Rudi, he came to me and he said, Mom, I think I found somebody I might be able to pass my teachings on to. And, you know, I mean, you know, Rudi didn't tell me this. His mother told me this. I was like, oh my God. And he would do things, incredible things. The only reason I keep you around here is you remind me of Nityananda as a young man. If you didn't remind me of that, I would have kicked you out of here a long time ago, you know? And, you know, I used to hear this stuff, and I was a young schmucky kid, you know, who had a deep need for a spiritual life and found somebody I knew in my heart of hearts could provide it for me. And I wasn't gonna blow that. I had blown so many things in my life as a young man. I was not gonna blow that. And no matter what I went through, and trust me, he put me through shit that I don't think I'll ever put anybody through. The training that he gave me, you know? And what he put me through, my God, I don't even, you know, but 20 years later, it served me so profoundly that it basically saved my life. I mean, his teachings, to me, are the most extraordinary thing that happened to the 20th century. And it's something that is so profound and at such depth that we have to learn it. It's essential to learn what he taught. And I'm not Rudi. I am trying to the best of my ability to transmit those teachings, you know, as profoundly and as simply as I can possibly transmit them to all of you. Because my job is not to be a guru. I tell you this all the time. My job is to give it away. And hopefully, you know, people will take it and they will grow to the place where they can teach, you know, this out of gratitude and maybe save the lives of other people. Anyway, God bless you all. And, you know, I tell you, the questions are wonderful. They bring up such profound things and deep things inside myself. And to be honest with you, I listen to the answers as much as you do, you know, because I need to learn all this stuff also, you know. This is Rudi talking through me. This is Nityananda talking through me. It's not Stuart, you know. I mean, I putz around the rest of the day and do my life and try to stay centered, take care of little business things. And then, you know, and I remember Rudi, I was sitting with him. He said to me one day, I'll never forget this. He said, Stuart, how am I different than anybody else? And I'm sitting in there, this great golden light is coming at him, and I'm absorbing Shakti. That was unbelievable. How am I different? He said, I go to the movies. I like to go have Chinese food. And he really liked Chinese food. We ate in every Chinese restaurant in Chinatown. It was unbelievable. And he starts naming all the things that he enjoyed, and they were just no different than any other human being. But how am I different? I said, Rudi, trust me, you're different. You're very different. The energy coming out of you is the energy of God. And, that was the fun of being around Rudi. He was simple. You laughed, you had fun. It was, it wasn't bullshit. It wasn't him trying to be holier than everybody else, And he was holier than everybody else. He really was. But he never lived that way or, presented himself that way to other people. And this was 6 years of being with him, Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? I hope that helps you, Kevin,
Thank you, Stuart. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions, and thank you all, and God bless you all. And there'll be a class tomorrow evening at same time, 7:30 my time, and whatever time your time is. And I just can't tell you how grateful I am to sit here and do this and to share my life with you and it's just a joy. I have to say it's a privilege. And I just thank God for that privilege that I can be used this way and that I can share my life and my energy, and not even my energy, the energy that comes through me with all of you. So bless you all. And hopefully I'll see everybody tomorrow, and have a wonderful evening. God bless you all.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank
Night,
you
Stuart.
very, very much, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart.
Hey.
Thank you.